Actor Peter Greene has been found dead in his apartment in Lower Manhattan.
I want to know where my money is, and I want to know right now.
Even people who don't recognize the name Peter Greene recognize the face. For just a few unforgettable minutes in Pulp Fiction, he became one of the most disturbing villains in modern cinema history. Soon enough, he became Hollywood's go-to bad guy, an antagonist who felt uncomfortably real, even if he was on the screen for only a few minutes.
Had a motorcycle accident and in LA and came back to New York, and clean shaven was going to be a short for a school project.
So when news broke that the actor had been found dead in his Manhattan apartment at the age of 60, it sent a quiet shock through Hollywood. Then came the questions. What did a man who helped define cinema in the 1990s leave as his legacy? Chapter 1. The Final Night. Peter Greene's death didn't arrive with a public announcement curated by an extensive PR team. Since the actor had chosen to spend the latter years of his life privately, there were no warning signs to signal that the end was near. Greene lived a private life in New York, far removed from the industry that once relied on his intensity to bring its darkest characters to life. And that is where he was found. On Friday, December 12, 2025, the police discovered Peter's body inside his apartment in Manhattan. What makes the entire thing truly heartbreaking is that he was all alone, and no one knew how long it had been since his unfortunate passing. The world simply carried on outside his door without knowing anything that had happened. Apartment. When repeated knocking went unanswered, police were called to check on him. According to his manager, Greg Edwards, a neighbor became concerned after hearing Christmas music playing non-stop inside Greene's New York apartment. When repeated knocking went unanswered, police were called to check on him. Officers arrived for a wellness check and entered the apartment with the help of a locksmith, only to find Greene deceased. And then, as the first report spread, more unsettling details began to emerge. Multiple outlets reported that Greene was found lying face down, and that there appeared to be signs of injury and blood at the scene. Some of these details come from what one of his neighbors claimed to have seen. The investigators reportedly did not treat the death as suspicious at the time. The imagery alone was enough to shake Hollywood. But that's not all. The most eerie detail at the crime scene was a handwritten note found near the body. The note read, "I'm still a Westie." The phrase is a possible reference to the notorious Irish-American gang associated with Hell's Kitchen decades ago. But for now, Greene's involvement or the meaning of the note remains unknown as investigations remain ongoing. The cause of the actor's death has not been publicly confirmed as of yet, and this uncertainty is leading to people coming up with all kinds of theories and possible explanations as to what might have happened. Peter Greene is survived by his 16-year-old son, Ryder, a brother and a sister, with no known romantic partners at the time of his death. However, what is definitely known comes directly from Greene's manager. Greg has shared details of his final call with the actor, and according to him, Greene did seem to be a little anxious in the days leading up to his death. The manager assumed that he was just a little stressed out, and the fact that everything else seemed normal led him to believe that the actor was doing fine. The only concern Greene expressed was an upcoming medical procedure. He had been scheduled to undergo surgery to remove a benign tumor near his lung, a procedure doctors reportedly described as non-life-threatening. He voiced the same apprehension anyone might feel before surgery. Then, the conversation moved on. Greg added that the news came as a total surprise and described the actor as a terrific guy and a great friend. Peter's manager truly believed that he was one of the greatest performers of this generation with a big heart and undiminishing talent. So when he was found dead in his apartment, the exact day of the scheduled operation, it definitely came off as a little suspicious to his manager. Chapter 2. Peter Greene's Fame and Fortune. As the shock of Peter Greene's death remains, the world was eager to know the kind of life he lived, and most importantly, what did he leave behind? For an actor whose face appeared in some of the most influential films of all time, many assumed the answer would involve a lot of wealth and at least a dozen properties. This is because Hollywood has trained audiences to believe that appearing in even one iconic film guarantees lifelong financial security. But Peter Greene's reality told a very different story. In the days following his death, multiple outlets reported that Greene's net worth was modest, with most estimates placing it well under $1 million, and some sources citing figures in the low to mid six figures. There were no reports of large estates, no luxury properties, and no investment portfolios quietly growing in the background. Greene's income came primarily from acting roles spread across decades. Supporting parts in major studio films, lead roles in independent projects, guest appearances on television, and occasional late-career work. These jobs paid respectably in the moment, but rarely came with the long-term financial benefits enjoyed by A-list stars. He wasn't getting any franchise residuals, back-end profit deals, or ownership stakes in the films that made him so famous. He was an honest man, doing the job that he loved without caring about the money. But that wasn't always the case. Greene's struggles did not begin in Hollywood. They began in his teenage years. At just 15 years old, Peter ran away from his home in New Jersey and ended up living on the streets of New York City. For years, he drifted between neighborhoods, shelters, and temporary places to sleep. And like many teenagers navigating homelessness, Greene was pulled into an environment where illegal substances seemed like the answer to all his problems. During those years, he fell into substance abuse. What began as exposure turned into dependence. Greene later admitted that he became deeply entangled with the wrong crowd and started dealing to earn money to survive. In fact, one violent altercation with another dealer nearly cost him his life, leaving him physically and emotionally scarred. Ironically, it was during this period of chaos that he started to find refuge in art and acting. Greene would take refuge in movie theaters, sitting through multiple screenings simply to stay warm and out of sight for as long as possible. Watching films became another way for him to survive, and before he knew it, he started finding inspiration in multiplexes and started dreaming of people watching him on those screens one day. That's when he realized this was it, his way out. Chapter 3. A Star is Born. In his mid-20s, Greene began pursuing acting seriously, eventually training at the Lee Strasberg Theatre Institute. But even as his career began to take shape, his struggles followed him. In 1990, Greene landed a small role on the NBC crime drama Hardball. It wasn't glamorous, but it was the start he needed. 2 years later, in 1992, he made his feature film debut in Laws of Gravity, a gritty New York crime drama that reflected the streets he knew all too well. The role introduced Greene to filmmakers who recognized his authenticity. That recognition led directly to his first breakthrough. In 1993, Greene starred in Clean Shaven, an intense psychological drama in which he portrayed a man with schizophrenia suspected of murder. The performance was widely praised and immediately set him apart as an actor willing to go places others avoided. Critics took notice. Casting directors took note. Greene was suddenly seen as a serious talent. Greene won the Best Actor prize at the 1994 Taormina International Film Festival for his role in Clean Shaven, and that was the beginning of his rise. Then came 1994, the year that changed everything. Greene appeared in Pulp Fiction as Zed, a role that would become one of the most disturbing performances in modern cinema despite limited screen time. The film's success propelled him into pop culture history almost overnight. That same year, he appeared opposite Jim Carrey in The Mask as Dorian, the film's primary villain. With two major releases in one year, Greene suddenly found himself part of Hollywood's biggest conversations. In Pulp Fiction, Greene terrified audiences by doing very little. In The Mask, he commanded the screen with physicality and presence. Together, the roles showcased his range and cemented his reputation as an actor who could inhabit darkness without exaggeration. All of a sudden, the industry wanted more. In 1995, Greene teamed up with director Bryan Singer for the psychological crime drama The Usual Suspects. Surrounded by a cast that included Kevin Spacey, Gabriel Byrne, and Benicio del Toro, Greene once again proved his ability to stand out in intense ensemble films. While the movie became best known for its twist ending, Greene's presence added to the film's dark, uneasy atmosphere. In 1997, he appeared in Kiss and Tell, followed by a role in 1999's Blue Streak, a fast-paced crime comedy starring Martin Lawrence. Though lighter in tone than much of his earlier work, the film showed Greene's ability to adapt to different styles while maintaining the edge audiences associated with him. Chapter 4. Behind the Scenes. By the early 1990s, as Greene's career was gaining momentum, most people didn't know that his substance abuse had also intensified. He later spoke openly about his use of illegal substances during this period. The contradiction was stark. Professionally, he was on the rise. But his personal life was unraveling like never before. In 1996, at the height of his rising recognition, Greene reached a breaking point. After an unsuccessful attempt to end his life, he sought treatment for his addiction. The moment marked a turning point in his life and career. He later reflected on that time and admitted that addiction affected every part of his existence. His health deteriorated, and opportunities that once seemed within reach quietly disappeared. For a while, though, it appeared that Greene had won the fight. Industry insiders believed he had achieved sobriety by the late 1990s. He returned to work. He landed roles in film and television as if he were ready for a second act. The late 1990s and early 2000s kept him steadily working. One of his most recognizable later performances came in 2001's Training Day. Starring alongside Denzel Washington and Ethan Hawke, Greene appeared in the gritty police drama that went on to become one of the most celebrated films of the decade. Once again, he found himself part of a project that defined an era, even if he was in a supporting role. But addiction never moves in a straight line now, does it? In July 2007, Greene was arrested in New York's East Village for possession of illegal substances. The arrest came as a surprise to those who believed his struggles were firmly behind him. It confirmed what many close to him feared, but rarely spoke about. His battle was not over just yet. That's when his career started to suffer once again. The truth is that Hollywood only tolerates one's personal struggles until they interfere with dependability. Once that trust is gone, the work slows down. For Greene, the consequences were subtle but permanent. It wasn't like he was ousted from the industry overnight, but roles became smaller, and he suddenly found himself limited in terms of new opportunities, and his financial stability took a huge hit. Yet, through it all, Greene never denied his past. He did not romanticize it, nor did he excuse it. In later interviews, he acknowledged that addiction cost him time and progress. Chapter 5. The Curtain Call. Despite his struggles, filmmakers continued to recognize his raw intensity and authenticity. Even in his later years, Greene remained in demand for projects that valued depth over polish. His final known role was an independent thriller titled Mascots alongside Mickey Rourke, which he was set to begin working on in early 2026. A reminder that, even at 60, he had not given up on his craft. His final on-screen appearance came in 2025, in an episode of the series Dope Thief. By the end of his career, he had appeared in over 100 projects and had worked with just about everybody in Hollywood. In the weeks before Peter Greene's death, nothing really seemed out of place. Just over a month before he was found dead, a photo of Greene appeared on Instagram. He was smiling, standing next to a group of musicians, looking relaxed and healthy. There was no sign of distress, no hint that anything was wrong. For fans who later saw the image after the news broke, it was difficult to process. This was not a man who looked like he was fading away. He looked comfortable and still a part of the world around him. In his final years, Greene had also become increasingly interested in storytelling beyond fiction. At the time of his death, he was attached as both narrator and associate producer on a documentary titled From the American People: The Withdrawal of USA ID. The project examined the global consequences of reduced humanitarian aid and the lives affected by it. According to his manager, Greene felt deeply connected to the subject. He spoke openly about wanting to give a voice to people who were rarely seen or heard, a striking contrast to the menacing characters he was so often cast to play. To those who knew him well, this wasn't surprising. Greene's neighbors spoke to the press in the wake of the sad news and shared that he was the type of person who would help other people with their groceries and go out of his way to be of service to someone. They described him as a terrific guy who will be thoroughly missed by everyone he happened to cross paths with. Greene had always been drawn to people living on the margins. He understood struggle intimately, not as an abstract concept, but as a lived experience: homelessness, addiction, instability, survival. These weren't roles he studied. They were realities he had escaped, but never forgot. And because his work resonates so deeply to this day, the news of his unfortunate demise was met with an immediate response from fans who flooded social media with tributes. Only this time, they aren't celebrating his red carpet moments or box office collections. Instead, they are remembering the times Greene made them feel something when they watched him on screen. Many fans agreed that while they never remembered his name, they always remembered his characters, and as an actor, that is the biggest feat one can achieve. Sean Ringgold, who worked with Peter Greene on the ABC series For Life, shared a remembrance that spoke not to Greene's reputation, but to who he was when the cameras stopped rolling. Ringgold shared what an honor it was to work with the late actor and added that his spirit, talent, and authenticity have left a lasting mark on everyone around him. Ringgold recalled his time on set with Greene and expressed how grateful he was for the laughter they shared and the genuine conversations they had with one another. "You will be deeply missed, my brother, but never forgotten," Sean concluded. His manager, Greg, of course, echoed this sentiment and claimed that nobody played a better bad guy than Peter. At the same time, though, he so clearly had a thoughtful, generous, and gentle side to him that the public largely remained unaware of. Despite his contributions to Hollywood and the fact that he helped define entire genres, Peter's life is a reminder of how Hollywood works and how very often it leaves people behind. Greene represented the backbone of the industry, the character actors who carry stories without recognition, who give films texture and credibility without ever becoming household names. In many tributes, people wrote about how Greene's performances stayed with them longer than those of bigger stars, how he made scenes feel dangerous, how he elevated films simply by showing up. And that might just be the clearest measure of his impact. Chapter 5. The Mystery of Peter Greene. The only question that remains now is, what exactly happened to Peter in those final hours? It's not unusual for authorities to hold off on an official cause of death in cases like these. They have to wait for medical examiners to complete toxicology reports, review medical histories, and rule out contributing factors. The process is slow by design since it's meant to ensure accuracy. The fact that Greene had been preparing for a medical procedure right before his passing has also led fans to speculate whether his underlying health issues could have played a role in all of this. While others have pointed to his long, well-documented struggles with addiction and mental health, there is currently no public evidence linking those issues to his passing. None of these elements tells a complete story on its own, though. They are just reminders of how little outsiders ever truly know about a person's final moments. As the public waits for clarity, the industry waits too. Colleagues, collaborators, and filmmakers who worked alongside Greene are beginning to speak about the man behind the characters. Tributes are emerging not as grand statements, but as personal reflections, memories of his generosity on set, his commitment to truth in performance, his quiet kindness away from the camera. There is no rush to define his ending. Not yet. Peter Greene's story was never about a perfect rise or a happy ending. His journey is about a man who gave everything he had to his craft, even if he wasn't rewarded for it. What do you think about the actor's tragic passing? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.